The latest Marist College poll has former Governor Andrew Cuomo still in the lead, but Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani is closing the gap slightly. The poll, which was conducted last week, found Cuomo outpacing Mamdani 55% to 45% in the 7th round of ranked choice voting. But the poll also found there is still a chunk of voters who are undecided. So joining us now to discuss is Politico reporter Nick Reisman and Katie Honan, who is a reporter at the nonprofit news site The City. This is so exciting to have you guys here. I've been bragging about you guys coming on the show. Two of the best reporters in the city. Thank you guys. No. So let's start first with that poll. You know, why do you feel like some of these other candidates, they were not getting really support, single digits, most of the other candidates besides really City Comptroller Brad Lander? Why do you guys feel like that is?
I think it's the strength of people's campaigns. And for someone like the former governor, Andrew Cuomo, he does have name recognition, which I think plays a huge part in polling. He has a lot of money and he's been running a lot of ads. And then you have Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani, who has a lot of money as well, not as much as Cuomo, but a lot. And he has the strength of this really strong volunteer base. They've been out. He says his campaign has knocked on 1.1 million doors, so that's a lot of doors. And I think that really shows when you get to these polls, because it's a lot of name recognition.
And what's really fascinating about this race is that Cuomo has been leading almost wire to wire in nearly all of these polls that we have seen emerge publicly since he entered in March 1st. And he's really gotten the support of the Mayor Eric Adams base in this race. Black New Yorkers, Jewish voters, people who make less than $50,000 a year, people who do not have college degrees. That is the coalition that you really need in order to win citywide, especially a Democratic primary in New York City. And Cuomo, at least according to the polling, really does seem to have this like vice grip on those voters. And whether that's going to be enough, whether Zohran Mamdani has enough to overcome that is a big question heading into Tuesday.
Yeah, one of the big news this week was Brad Lander getting arrested by ICE. Do you guys feel like that is going to have an impact on this race?
I think it could. I think people see in the comptroller, if they have particular feelings about ICE enforcement and what the federal government is doing and plans to continue to do, they might really be moved by what the comptroller did. And I will say, you know, there were critics who said, oh, you know, it was a stunt, but he goes to immigration court regularly to observe and support people who are being detained or escorted out. And that is what he did. And I've heard from people who say, wow, that's really impressive. And I think he was coming off a strong week anyway. He did well at the final debate, landing a lot of attacks at Cuomo, who is the target of most of the other candidates.
This debate that which you hosted, by the way.
Yes. Don't moderate, because there were others there. But I think also getting the support from that weird New York Times non-endorsement endorsement from the panel, and whatever they had going on there. So it was a surge of activity.
Right, yeah. I mean, I've been saying that Brad Lander certainly seems to have been eating his Wheaties in the final closing days of this campaign. The strong debate performance, what occurred at the courthouse. You know, Brad Lander is an interesting candidate because he's someone who has been kind of placing a distant third to Mamdani and to former Governor Cuomo. So it does remain to be seen if he is going to be able to break out of that pack and actually get enough number 2 votes or even number 3 votes going forward. So, you know, look, I mean, ranked choice voting is a little unpredictable. It wouldn't be shocking, actually, if we see somebody like Brad Lander finish second or do a lot better on primary day than I think a lot of people are expecting.
Now, speaking of Cuomo, as you guys well know, as our viewers know, Cuomo resigned as governor in 2021 amid not only numerous sexual harassment accusations, but also because he was being accused of his handling of COVID-related nursing home deaths and his role in undercounting them and a few other things with this. So I'm going to play a soundbite here, and then we're going to talk about it in just a moment.
I did not recall seeing the report at the time. I did see the report, it turns out. The nursing home story was a politicized story.
Did you ever make changes to the report?
I'm sure that if I read the report, I made language changes.
It's kind of confusing, but to remind our viewers, back in March 25th, 2020, Cuomo issued an executive order that required nursing home facilities to accept COVID-positive patients. And then in July of 2020, Cuomo had the state health department issue a report that he said he had no role in writing or editing. And this report not only skewed the number of COVID-related nursing home deaths to count them as hospital hospital deaths. It also accused nursing home staff and visitors of spreading COVID in those nursing homes and took away any sort of liability with that March 25th order. Explain more about the impact that comment has.
Right. So the nub of this controversy is when the governor spoke to a COVID subcommittee, to the congressional subcommittee, he initially said, I did not edit the report. I didn't see the report. He was asked that directly as a yes or no question, and he said, no, I didn't edit, I didn't see it. And then he subsequently told, and under a different line of questioning, I don't remember. And so that has been kind of the crux of why a Republican-backed House panel sent that to a DOJ referral saying that he lied to Congress. This is something that the former governor does deny. All of that said, clearly the governor had a role in this nursing home report. He has virtually said as much at this point, and he has tried to say repeatedly that a lot of the controversies that led to his ouster in 2021 is largely due in part to politics, and he has blamed MAGA Republicans for the nursing home controversy. Well, Democrats in Congress have been similarly harsh about the governor's own recounting and counting for nursing home fatalities during COVID, as well as his own presentation to the subcommittee.
Yeah, and it wasn't actually until a state attorney general report in January of 2021 that found that the Cuomo administration was undercounting nursing home deaths by more than 50%. Did they finally update the number? And then later, his secretary to the governor, Melissa DeRosa, said that they froze because they were nervous about what the Trump administration would do. But now the Department of Justice is investigating whether Cuomo lied to that panel about that report. He says now that he does remember editing that report, but he didn't remember when he was testifying to Congress. What would the city council do if charges were to be dropped against Cuomo if he were to be elected?
That's a complicated question because, you know, there is this removing a mayor, if you just want to, like, you know, this is the hypothetical question about what could happen. But I think, too, of all of this stuff swirling around him and how even for people who've endorsed him, who 4 years ago called on him to resign, I wonder if it's people with short memories or just they're past that, you know, and I think there's plenty of victims whose loved ones died in nursing homes or especially the sexual harassment victims who it's not over for them. But I think that would be a bridge to cross, figuring out would there be, you know, this panel. We thought about this when Mayor Adams was indicted.
And we did invite Cuomo on this show, asked him for an interview, and he declined. But turning to Mamdani, he's promising a lot of things: free buses, freezing the rent. A lot of this is going to need state legislative approval. Governor Kathy Hochul came out the other day saying that she has no plans to raise taxes on the wealthy right now. How hard will it be for him to kind of get some of this stuff done in Albany?
I mean, if you're a mayor like, say, Michael Bloomberg or Bill de Blasio, who has a lot more experience in governmental life and in politics than Zohran Mamdani, they had a very hard time getting their agenda through the state legislature and past the governor. Now, there were very certain specific reasons why that was occurring, but Zohran Mamdani would have a very tough time as mayor trying to get through that tax hike in Albany. On the flip side of this, though, Andrew Cuomo wants a $20 minimum wage in New York City, and that is something that is going to require legislative approval. All of this is going to be at Governor Kathy Hochul's feet when she is going to be running for re-election next year. So imagine a tax hike on the rich or an increase in the minimum wage. That's something that a lot of business leaders in New York are going to be very leery of.
And Mamdani is really getting hit hard right now on his stance on the Israel-Hamas war. He said the other day that globaliza intifada has a different meaning for some people. How big of a role do you think this is going to play in the race right now, having some of those comments? He did cry, though, saying he's not anti-Semitic. He doesn't want to be put in that box. But what do you feel like is going to be the impact of this?
I think it could have a small impact. And I mean, I know also he's received lots of threats. The NYPD is investigating threatening phone calls to his office. I think it's the tensions around what's happening with Israel and Gaza are very high. But I also say, and in speaking to lots of supporters for Mamdani, you know, I know a lot of critics of Mamdani just say outright, oh, he's anti-Semitic. But I don't hear from people what is empathy for people in Gaza and what's happening there. And I think that is what gets lost in this large thing. And obviously, the phrase is used across the world to incite violence on Jewish people across the world. But again, I think what's rooted in a lot of this, and it gets lost from people who are just criticizing him wholesale, is younger people or just people in general feeling for what's happening in Gaza and what's happening from U.S. tax dollars, and that's where their criticism is.
I look forward to circling back with you guys, but we're really not going to get results until July 1st, because that's if a candidate doesn't reach the 50% threshold on June 24th, this Tuesday. We're really looking at July 1st for results, right?
And plus, we still have a general in November, and it does not end on July 1st.
Exactly.
There's going to be a lot more to do.
We could have a
Thank
pad to
goodness.
field. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thank you.